All right, it is indeed a very, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of the Tackle. It is the 15th of November 2022, tarehe 15 mwezi wa 11 mwaka 2022. Natumai kwamba uko salama. You woken up and ready to tackle your day. It's crazy today in Nairobi. The weather is crazy, the traffic is crazy, everything is crazy. Tafuteni chai kama mko mahali karibu huko, anasema hii weather ni watu wawili, mwingine wa kuchemsha chai na mwingine wa kuendea mkate. It's a pleasure to have you. Come on, joining. Please like when you like. We get to know that you're watching us, and that please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. When you joining, please like when you like. We get to know that you're watching us, and that please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. Also, let us know where you're watching us from this morning. Alafu tuanze kujua mambo vipi. It's a State of the Nation edition of the 15th of November 2022, and it begins right now. Kuna JAVAS BIGAMBO is his first time on the Tackle. JAVAS BIGAMBO is a political analyst. I'm sure you've seen him here and about. They and about hapa na pale, na kwanga uwezi kwanza kuona yeye hapa na pale utamwona. Na pia tuko na LYDIA MATHIA. It's not the first time, she's been sticking with us for 2 years now. I think every time we'll be celebrating anniversary, she'll be part of the assets. Good to see you again, LYDIA. Kama kawaida lazima tuende mbele za Mungu tuombe, halafu tukirudi basi na kuja kujua nani ameweza kuamka. Sijui kama LYDIA utatuombea. Are you feeling benevolent now to speak to Jehovah?
Let us pray. Father Lord, in the name of Jesus Christ, we come before you this morning, thanking you for the gift of life, thanking you for our safe arrival at the studios, and thanking you also for helping BITALK to keep up this good work that it's been doing. We pray that our discussions are guided by your wisdom. We pray that our thoughts and expressions bring fulfillment and bring value to your people. We pray this believing and trusting in the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Amen.
Asante sana, Bishop LYDIA. I think if you're a good girl, you would be having a church now.
Isn't it? I should start as small those ones. They have one-roomed churches. Kumbe nimeokoka.
Sasa ungekuwa na 310. Jana ilijuzi ilikuwa Sunday. Sasa ungekuwa na kakitu unatoa.
Unajua ministry za aina mingi. Ministry za aina mingi.
There's many ways of ministry. So is your ministry?
My ministry is service to the public. I think that's what
When it is. Dorcas ministry. Kulikuwa inaitwa Dorcas ministry. Dorcas ministry ilikuwa gani?
Ati Dorcas ministry.
Kumbe uje Biblia.
Kumbe huyo ndo bishop.
Naona sasa. I'm a retired bishop, just in the interest of facts.
Where is the church?
Niliangusha watu miaka mingi.
Na wakaokoka.
Hebu uliza around. Ati nikaokoka. Si nimeokoka mpaka sasa.
Mpaka sasa.
Nilikuwa nikipiga crusade watu wanaanguka.
Ukweli?
Back then. Hata sasa hii unaweza
kuhubiria
mpaka I can say something to the Lord about your life.
And let me I can feel the presence of God.
Unaweza sikia. That good morning.
Good morning. How are you, BITALK?
Salama sana mambo. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's my maiden appearance here, and I'm so excited.
Kiingereza tu. Your maiden appearance.
Maiden.
Yeah, this is where you went to school. If you went to a polling station, you say, ni mara yangu ya kwanza. Lianda Academy, I'm a group of schools. It's my maiden. My maiden. All right. Yeah, I did the class.
But actually, I've never set foot in a public, in a private institution in my life. I've gone to public schools from, primary school all the way to universities.
Wow.
So this is land finesse.
Really?
Acquired
finesse.
Acquired.
You see, just like LYDIA as well, she went to the University of Nairobi. So,
the university.
nimesomea public school.
The university. Like in the University of Nairobi, I'm sure LYDIA was in a group of schools somewhere.
Oh, hell to the no. Mimi nimesomea Ushago.
She looks very polished.
Nimesomea Loreto. Nimesomea Rwaka Primary. Uko Mabruki uko. And zile nursery za kuandika kwa floor. You know those ones where I used to write on the wood on the floor?
Yes.
Loreto Limuru amewapi?
Limuru. Kericho, I was born in Kericho, then we came back.
Okay.
We came to Limuru because of they would swap the factory, Mabruki Tea Factory. Would swap their staff. The ones who are Kikuyus in Rift Valley would be brought to Central, and the ones who are here, who are Kalenjin, would be taken back because of that. So we were moved. My dad was transferred in before I turned 5 years. Or is it 4 years? I can't remember. But 5 years. So he was transferred to avoid the clashes of 92.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nilikuwa nashindwa ulitoa wapi mwanya. Sasa now I know.
My mom used to go to the market in Londiani, by the way. So your area, Kericho, I feel very nostalgic when I'm going through that area.
I hope you're not saying anything. Your mom used to go to the market in Londiani.
Really be talk. I should see my dad. Tunafanana sana. Matthew Mathia.
Matthew Mathia.
Matthew Mathia Henya.
Matthew Mathia.
Quite poetic.
Matthew, isn't it? And Kenya, I was like, oh, this is almost like Kenya.
But you need to, have you tried to have someone who doesn't have one tooth to call him? Matthew Mathia.
Like me, they have a gap.
Watoe meno moja.
Matthew.
Matthew Mathia.
Matthew Mathia.
Mungalita continue all day from Coventry, United Kingdom. Good morning. Tuning in from Coventry, United Kingdom. Good to be part of this morning State of the Nation edition. Good to see you. Vitalis Adia, good morning to you, my brother. Good morning, Gerald. Hope you're doing well. I'm tuned in. Thank you so much, Vitalis. Good to see you this morning. I just have Makome Munga, Governor Eldoret, getting you loud and clear. Thank you, Timoke. Good morning from Kimumu Eldoret, wishing everyone a good day and a blessed week. Thank you so much. Lenin CEO, watching from Malindi Town. Bonvenja Kimaru, good morning. Vito, good morning to you, sir. Daniel, good morning, Gerald, following from Kabarnet, Baringo County. Good to see you. Watu wa Baringo. Nimeambiwa kuna mbuzi huko mmeniitia huko. I'll come. I will be coming. Nitakuja. Haya. Kipto Victor, good morning. Good morning to you. Jofin Wanyingo, Salimia, Javas, Bigambo, and Lydia. Good morning to you. Larry Kimonori. Mpotea leo hapi ndugu. Good morning. Jina Bito Tundi from Eldoret. Wani watu wa Jessing Contractors. Kama unafanya mjengo, tafuta jamaa anaitwa Larry Kimonori wa Jessing Contractors, alafu basi nyumba inatoka shwari. Pauline Cherab, good morning team Tackle. Good morning to you, Pauline. Good to see you this morning. Hope you're doing well. Karibu sana. The Tackle when you join, please like when you like. We get to know that you're watching us, and that like share when you share. You give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. Mafuta imeshuka na shilingi ngapi? Mwe. Moja. Kanashuka pole pole. Every man nashuka na one bob. One bob.
By the time tunafika 2027. Kwa imeshuka na shilingi ngapi? 12 times 5, 60 bob.
So 170 itakuwa 110. Kenya mambo ni mengi. Ndio machache. But at least it's a relief. It's a one bob relief this morning. Let's go up better. You're 1 shillings less your fuel cost this morning. So if you're doing 10 liters, you're 10 shillings less. Yeah, I know. The Lord is good. Java, State of the Nation.
Yes.
How do you think it's a State of the Nation? It's your feeling.
Well, Bitok, I sit here on the tackle, so that we can tackle issues to do with the state of the nation. And the state of the nation, I think, from where I sit, is promising, regardless of the anxiety on the part of some, regarding various issues or sectors. But I think the sense of stability, the sense of assurance, and the manner in which the William Ruto administration is getting grounded, and in fact, not losing the ball on the critical thematic issues that they promised during the campaign, is giving a sense of assurance. And so I think I would confidently say that the state of our nation is quite assuring.
I think it's very assuring. All right, I've been monitoring the internet for the past 1 week. There's been several conversations around the internet, especially on people that probably maybe never voted for this government, or those who did. Some people they're expressing some feeling of disappointment. I saw something. I don't want to say who posted it. Someone was saying, "Mnasema serikali ya mama mboga, serikali ya watu wa boda boda, nene." And when you look at the threads, the people were somehow expressing dissatisfaction with the way government has been able to run within the 60 days. Java says that there's a great sense of optimism and things are working out, with the way things have been. Things that have been promised seems to be having a path towards it. Do you agree with it, Lydia, or are you among the people who are saying, no, atuko tumesema hivi?
Apana, the administration is not even fully settled. There is still principal secretaries, and they're the accounting officers. So really, they're the ones who move the nuts and bolts of policy work, the ones who move words to action, and they're still not in office. So I think it would be overambitious to expect this administration to have made any significant moves, given the place where we were. I think what I pick up is a sense of cautious, patience, cautious optimism from Kenyans. They, I think, are willing to give the government a chance to work. There's a sense of, okay, we are waiting. So there's that, you can feel the patience. Certainly some are holding their breath just because of their circumstances. They cannot wait too long. The cost of living is still fairly steep. The rains have failed. I think, there's not much that can be expected from the short rains. I don't know what's going to happen between now, maybe and the end of the month. But at least I know there's a crop that failed, because at least my mom told me, part of what she had planted, she had to just, cut and give to the cows because there was no produce. That was maize, aikuza, because there was not enough rainfall. So we are waiting to see, because we're expecting maybe after the fertilizer subsidy, 2-3 months, 4 months, we have a good harvest, which would then bring down the cost of food. But perhaps one of the things that the administration might have to consider going forward is the issue of subsidizing consumption, because the pocket of the Kenyan is still being battered, and they're not being able to afford food. So I don't know what's going to happen around January, February, especially now with parents having to pay school fees, and again having to fork out so much money to fuel their vehicles and those kinds of things. And I think if the crop fails completely, there will have to be a rethinking in terms of what to do about especially the cost of food, whether it is to allow more importation, from the COMESA regions, perhaps from Uganda, from Tanzania, or perhaps other areas, importation of rice or those kinds of things. I think there'll have to be a bit of a rethink, because the cost of living is really the problem. I don't know how much longer this subdued patience is going to last. I'd keep my ears and eyes on that one if I was the one, tasked with that particular duty, just to see around February that, the costs have kind of come a little bit down. Yeah.
All right. What does it then, what does it then say generally about Kenyans? Are we constantly wishing governments fail? Are we a nation of pessimists? Are we a nation that is used to complaining about things because it's barely 60 days, as you said? But then again, there seems to be a lot of criticism and misinformed expectation, because sometimes you cannot expect from nothing.
You're also dealing with a whole community of Kenyans who were not rooting for the administration. Mm-hmm. So they have a lot of opinions about how things should have been. They still have remnants of what they had wanted. So they are still going through the grief period. So there's going to be a lot more noise from them, because they're the ones who want to hold the UD administration, or the Kenya Kwanza administration, to an unrealistic standard. An unrealistic standard. My concern, though, is not really the politically driven narratives and those kinds of, trying to push some kind of disquiet amongst the population. My concern really is genuinely the mama mboga and that farmer who trusted the Kenya Kwanza administration, and knowing that perhaps going into maybe 6 months, so that's like 4 months from now, they are going to begin to expect to feel some kind of relief. Of course, there's this subsidy for fertilizer, which is good. And I think that gave them some little room to breathe. So we're waiting to see after 6 months, where are we going to be? And I think the administration is ticking the right boxes. It's moving at the right pace. The Hustler Fund is coming online, I believe, from December 1st. The regulations are already published. The public participation is happening, I think it's from today. From today to, is it Thursday? Or something like that. So it's my imagination that once the Hustler Fund comes online and people are able now to borrow and do business, the people who borrow from Fuliza, for example, imagine in every market around the country, the people who go and see that Sherlock in the morning and then have to pay in the evening with ridiculous interest. You've borrowed 10,000, you're paying 11,000, you're paying 10%, for just one day. You understand? So those are the kind of people who begin to immediately feel the relief of something like the Hustler Fund, enabling business and those kinds of things. I am hoping also the administration will act fast and quickly, and I think they're already doing it on this issue of the pending bills, because a lot of people's money is caught up with those pending bills. I think the CS for roads, Murkomen, has already set out a plan to pay about 93 billion. That's going to be almost like a stimulus, because once you have money moving around the economy in that manner, then people begin to feel some sense of relief in terms of money in the pocket. So I don't have any reason not to expect good things going forward or relief, and I think I'm like JAVAS, highly optimistic that things are heading in the right direction. And they're moving at the right pace. More importantly is that they're moving at the right pace. Not sure people can be working on something forever. But the president has proven to be a man of action, a man of consistency, hard work. I think it's yesterday the papers were publishing, he has held about 126 meetings.
162.
And that's how you move government. You move government through meetings. Meetings is how you monitor progress. Meetings is how you hold people accountable for deliverables. So the fact that he's dedicated so much time to, meeting his bureaucrats, is a good sign. And so we have every reason to be hopeful.
All right. Javas, do you think, what are your thoughts about Kenyans? Are we constantly whining?
We are not a monarchy. We are a democracy. In a democracy, varying opinions must and will always be entertained. Because when we went into an election in a democratic space, you do not expect a homogeneous perspective or views about how governance should be done. There is that party or coalition that did not win power, and their supporters, and they will have varying views about how the government is running its affairs. And I think as I sit here, I must possibly quite clearly recollect the words of J.F. Kennedy, who spoke on the 20th of January 1961 when he took over the reins of power. And after making his firm commitments, after that oath, he said that the commitments he has made to the American nation may not be met in the first 100 days, even though he hoped so, or in the first term of his administration, or possibly even in the lifetime of that generation of Americans. But what was important is that the work had begun. What is important for us is not so much about the speed of the Kenya Kwanza administration, but the direction. Because you could be at a high speed in the wrong direction. Now, while it is commendable about the kind of meetings that His Excellency President William Ruto has had over the last 60 days, about 160 meetings and beyond, and that of all those days in power, he has only relaxed or unaccounted for about 5 days. Now that's quite unique and enthusiastic of a people who have a president who is, I think, the youngest in the history of our country. And that it brings in a new kind of verve, dynamism and energy. And the fact that we've also seen some kind of impressive commitment on issues that he promised during the campaign. When you look at the plan as it is, on matters, for example, of cooperatives and small and micro economic enterprises, we've seen even a ministry established with that in mind. We have also seen the issue of the infrastructure not having been left behind, and the kind of energy that he has brought in by the kind of persons the president has selected for cabinet secretaries itself gives a great whiff or a great air of freshness in the manner in which anybody would like to look at this administration. It is okay to criticize. That's why I said we're not a monarchy. And it's important that as this criticism on the part of some is leveled against the government, that also government also gets to learn and take notes from that kind of criticism. Whoever is not criticized must not always look forward to progress. Progress itself is a product of constant improvements. And when this government finally takes off the ground, because right now I can say it's still taxiing out, because now we've got PSS being vetted, possibly we get to have CISs, etc., and parastatals, etc. It is important that also individuals, whether they supported this administration during the campaigns or not, they get also to see the kind of strides that are being made in every sector, whether it's security, as we shall delve into it, whether it's in matters, economy, matters of climate change, food security, etc. In fact, just to augment what Lydia has spoken about regarding matters hustlers, just yesterday the central bank gave a notification of how issues to do with persons listed in the CRB are going to get 50% relief from the lenders. And that's a great sense of relief to persons who possibly had been listed and were struggling to pay back those small or soft loans. Beyond that, I think it's also important for us to appreciate that it's just 60 days. The issues that President William Ruto committed to achieve within the first 100 days, may not all of them be met within those first 100 days, like I cited even JF Kennedy. But the thing is this, are we seeing a positive trend being set to achieve the commitments made through the plan? And I think my response to that is in the affirmative. Now, some have raised concerns about matters security, and that's also crucial. But when you study the history of administrations in this country, there is one thing you'll realize, that whenever a new administration takes power, there is always that hiccup in terms of security. When Kibaki took over the reins of power, you remember the issues of terrorism, the Kikambala bombings, Mungiki, etc., and it was so much. When Uhuru Kenyatta took the reins of power, you remember even that's when we had the Westgate terror attack and lots of muggings as well and insecurity in the city. Now President William Ruto has taken the reins of power. We've seen the cases of insecurity and muggings in the city, etc. But we know very well that these are things that can be handled. I saw a comment on the part of by a certain individual online that the dockets, for example, interior, required somebody who is tough talking and tough looking, like, for example, the predecessor of Professor Kindiki, Honorable Matiang'i. But you see, Honorable Matiang'i was not carrying guns and walking and patrolling the streets. It is the security agencies that have always done that. And like we've seen, when you study the history, you realize that with the transfer of power, there is always that slippery moment a bit. It's not that it should always be expected, but we've seen that trend. I can nearly see that within the next couple of months, the William Ruto administration will have a firm grip on matter security in this country, and this small hiccup will not be there. I think also that when it comes to looking at how the city is patrolled and the security issues managed, possibly the National Police Service should have an ancillary agreement with the GSU, if needs be, to augment their efforts with the assurance of security patrols, etc. Because as you study issues of security, whether it's in Kenya, whether it's in South Africa, whether it's in Gabon, or even across continental Europe, you'll realize one thing, that things like violent crimes and muggings, such kind of things will always give root to organized crime if they're not stemmed in the bud. And so these are things that should be handled quite expeditiously by this administration. It's good now that we have got the Inspector General of Police in office. Yesterday, they spoke firmly about how they are going to handle insecurity issues. Professor Kindiki, the CS for Interior, spoke quite eloquently about the issue of security as well. But what I think I would feel uncomfortable with is the 1 month amnesty period that has been given to criminals to turn in their arms. Those are illegal arms in the hands of criminals. And I think we should not have a discussion with criminals. In fact, that 1 month period, grace period, should not even be entertained. Because those who deny peace and security to others deserve it not for themselves. And in fact, the police should move swiftly without that 1 month period of amnesty. Beyond that, I think I'm not encouraging extrajudicial execution of even criminals, because yes, I know that even the unwanted have got their worth because they come from and support their own families. But the fact that they threaten the very peace and security of a city and a country, they must not be entertained. We are sitting here speaking just 3 days after bombings in Istanbul, Turkey, that killed 6 people and injured many more. And that's a very important tourist city and destination. When these things are not stemmed in the bud, they will lead and they will give impetus or even encouragement to some kind of criminal organizations within the city. I would also add by saying this, that we must not wait until a top shot is attacked so that now some swift speed is handled on matter security. Okay. As I sit here, we talk, just about 57 years ago, in this city, in broad daylight, Tom Mboya was gunned down. Not far from here, about 57 years ago as well, Pio Gama Pinto was gunned down in a city neighborhood on an early morning. Not far from here, J.M. Karuki was abducted and killed elsewhere, not far from here. Now, those are high-profile cases. But every day, in fact, just about 2 weeks ago, up to, I think, 3 days from now, we've seen reports in the media and elsewhere of people stabbed to death, some students, some business people. And this is worrying. And I think while it was said before that security starts with you, I think security concerns are matters that affect small businesses, big businesses, homes, individuals. And any threat to businesses also threatens the survival of individuals in this city. And we want to see, as Lydia said, we want to see money moving, people being confident to conduct businesses. We are desirous to have a 24-hour economy. That 24-hour economy is not possible when people fear for their lives or fear to move around or their property being vandalized in this city. So I take great comfort in the remarks made yesterday by Kindiki and by the IG and by Governor Sakaja. And moving forward, I think Kenyans are keenly watching to see what kind of immediate and urgent steps can be taken to handle the security concerns.
All right. What are your thoughts, Lydia, on insecurity issues? Because, I mean, it's very scary that we have normalized it. Even we make fun of it. You see someone comes in, snatches a handbag from people, just things happening during the day. You start screaming. So this will think you've already been robbed. I mean, we are normalizing crime. And I think, like he has said, it will take a lot of time to reverse it if we allow it to be a culture. You go to South Africa, for instance, someone from just come and find you in traffic and tell you, give me your phone or give me your money, do this and that. What are your thoughts on how do we fix this? Where do you think it's coming from and how do we fix it?
I think
there's also another convention that has come in that maybe I would want to bring in the angle of the people claiming that the government is raining too much on the police. And the police are like, okay, fine. You guys want us to handle these guys with gloves? Okay, fine. We'll run either way. Do you think there's some level of influence from the government policy on the police? I point all that. And how do you think we reverse this trend?
3 things which I think are happening. One, I think there is pressure or economic pressure on a lot of youngsters, especially those who live in the settlements in Nairobi, the informal settlements. So, but that pressure has always been there. So then we have to ask ourselves, this pressure, why does it seem to be bursting through the seams, or why is there action from these youngsters now to behave in the manner that they're behaving? And I think that brings you to the second point, which I think is the testing, that testing of, what's the approach to this security issue by this administration, which happens with every administration. I think even when Uhuru came to power, we had a wave of terrorist attacks, one after another, for a good period of time. Remember, until Haji, I think, was made the minister for security. So there's that sense of trying to, these criminal elements, trying to see, how are we going to be responded to? And that is why the government has to respond decisively, because it's an attempt, it's a dare, And what you begin to see after these petty things that we are talking about, then you've seen they've escalated to murder. You've seen they're going to escalate if they're not stemmed to things like armed bank robberies and those kinds of things, hastes, carjackings and those kinds of high level crimes. But I do believe that the third thing that is happening is a political one within the security sector. And I mean, if you've spoken to a police officer, if you've taken some time, they will tell you that there is a feeling within the security sector that this administration does not have their back. So why should they risk their lives, go into a dangerous situation, and if they use force or they use their firearm, there is going to be consequences that are individualized to themselves. So they feel as though they don't have their back. And I think you heard yesterday when the CS Kindiki spoke, he spent a good amount of his first few minutes of that address speaking directly to police officers, assuring them of the backing of the government, because that's what the problem is with these police officers, saying, why should I bother? So I'm going to act until where I feel safe. If I have to endanger my life and I'm not able to use a firearm, if I use it, it's a whole conversation around extrajudicial killing. Watch I kai. In fact, I remember there's an accident that happened on Thika Road, and there was a police car passing, and the public tried to wave it down, and they wakapita. Shwa, wakaenda. So police officers, there is that feeling, and this is it's a real sentiment that they're talking amongst themselves, that if you don't have my back, I'm not going to have the public's back. So it's a bit of I don't know whether to call it a go-slow or like a protest, but it is there amongst the police. And I know, listening to Kindiki yesterday, he has that intelligence. It is clear that government is aware of that intelligence. There is that. Remember also, a lot of these criminal elements are actually controlled by the security sector through things like confidential informants and those kinds of things. So if you're not, if you have police letting go of those controls, where they're the ones who tell these criminals, if you make a move, just know I'm going to deal with you, then you find these elements now feeling some sense of freedom to act out and do whatever they want to do. The other political issue within that sector is that when the administration changes, there's always that jostling, for power, for positioning. And you'll find that, now somebody who was perhaps a junior person feeling like now with a new administration who is maybe, I know someone, najua mtu mkubwa, or someone is known to me, someone is my relative, or someone is my tribesman, I can actually angle for a particular post, or I can angle for a particular position. And some of the ways that happens is by undermining security within certain areas or the certain commands, so that you can undermine the command of a particular person, that they can be changed, and that kind of jostling, that also happens. And so you'll find there could also be that sense of like sabotaging. Not that I can say firmly that I know that's what's happening, but there's usually that kind of a thing. So unapata, so that the command can be changed, or the command for a particular either squad or region. And I think you heard yesterday the command for Nairobi. The command for Nairobi was changed.
Yes.
Perhaps that was already the intention, that to show that this person is not working. Those kinds of those politics happen when there's a change of regime, because of that jostling within the security space. So si ati najua sana hii mambo, lakini
umesema lakini hujasema.
Nimesema lakini hujasema. Hiyo ndio ile intelligence tunajua. If you speak to these officers, they'll tell you, and I'm quite certain
they do actually.
That he knows. Yeah, he has that intelligence.
I had a breakdown on Langata Road. I had a puncture actually, a tire burst around 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago thereabouts, near the barracks on Langata Road. And then it took around 8 p.m. thereabouts, 8:30 towards 9. So I stopped. Of course, you have to stop. And after a few minutes, police lorry comes, parks the side. And the guy comes out and tells me, the muggings that have happened here are phenomenal. People are being stabbed every day and all that. Then again, he was like, wanaongelesha serikali. Ukikuonanga na suti kila unafikiri uko kwa serikali. Ongelesha serikali. There's nothing we can do to these guys. They're even a threat to your life as a policeman. I was asking, so if this guy shows up now, comes out with a gun, I mean,
and I can't shoot.
Where do you debate within IPOA things, regulation, and also saving your, protecting yourself. Even as a policeman, forget even about protecting you as a civilian. There's like, a lot of things happening here, but these guys, we know them, but now there's nothing we can do. You take this guy to court, he shows up there that after a week, but he's back on the streets. And they're daring enough to even threaten the police. Like, well, I'll deal with you. So I think it's a conversation that we must have. But then again, where are the vanguards? Where are the guards against abuse? Again, on the same regulations. And where is the balance? At what point do we classify execution of criminals and separate from extrajudicial killings? At what point?
I think we talk, and this is something that the police, the security sector will need to be genuine about. If there's a threat to life, either of the police person or of a member of the public, I don't think Kenyans or even government policy has ever had a problem with the use of force. And I don't see a history in our public discourse where we have victimized police for legitimate use of force. All right? But when you abduct people, then they disappear. They were not involved in crime. Yeah. You did not catch them in the act. They were not pointing guns in your face. And then you have abducted them, you have murdered them. That is a very different conversation from I have happened upon a crime and somebody is trying to shoot at me. Those are two very different conversations. And I think we have to separate the two issues. Police officers being reined in for extrajudicial killing, organized, premeditated extrajudicial killing is not the same as police officers being told not to use force as and when it is necessary, as it is their right and legal mandate to do, isn't it? Yeah. So I think there could be now these operators, all right, who are within this small nexus or whatever network, this network of personnel that had been looped into this SS2 or whatever it was, who might be sending this narrative, amongst, their comrades, so that they can perpetuate this disquiet and this perception. But those are two different things. And I think the command of the police has to find a way to communicate clearly that we are talking about two different issues here. Yeah, you going with a gun into Kibera or going with a gun into Mukuru to chase down a criminal gang is not the same as stopping a vehicle in the middle of the highway and putting somebody in the boot and murdering them. Those are two different things.
BIGAMBO.
No one deserves to lose a loved one to a criminal, whether that person is a civilian or a police officer. And it's very important. Just as much as we demand that the lives of civilians, whether top class in society, middle class, or lower class, must be protected, the lives of police officers too must be protected and guaranteed of their security. As a matter of fact, we sit here knowing that these police officers, male or female, are fathers, mothers, husbands, and relatives to many. And we've seen how many families have been pained when an officer has been killed in line of duty and kids left destitute or women left widows. And in fact, even a future becoming more bleak to that kind of family. Some of them are breadwinners. And so I think the security of citizens and that of police officers is a thing that must be guaranteed and protected. But beyond that, I think the other very important thing is that we must depoliticize security agencies. The use of police officers or security agencies, especially in the front lines within politics, especially in electioneering periods, is that which make some of the police officers be inclined to particular regimes or politicians. They must not be associated or become too emotive, much as they are citizens and have got their own rights. When we put police officers and use them as tools for political expediency, by the expediency of the executive fiat, is when we see some of them taking political sides, and that's not good for us. and not even good for our security officers. When you look at the NIS Act, the work of collecting data and information about threats, internal or external, to our peace and security as a country is something that is within the entire gamut, not just of the NIS, but all security agencies, whether it is the police or even General Service Unit and military. And I am sure, as Lydia spoke earlier, that CS Kindiki is well apprised of what is it that is going around within the security sector in murmurs about their legitimate discontent. Of course, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua earlier on spoke about the need for harmony and camaraderie between the police and ordinary citizens, and you used the example of drunkards, that when they are found staggering on the road, they should be put in the vehicle and escorted home. Now, it speaks to the kind of friendship that must exist, not fear, between citizens and security officers. Today, if a security officer, 2 of them on patrol, or 3 of them, or 4 of them, are sent down Luduli Avenue at night, or down in Huruma, in John Saga at night to do patrol, will they feel secure? Or will they fear that they'll be felled by the arms in the illegal hands, illegal arms in the hands of criminals? Or down in Madari, or even up here in Langata, we've seen that the rich are not even safer wherever they are. And if at all the rich and the middle class are feeling unsafe, what about those who have got no means to protect themselves in the informal settlements? Now, these are things that should stir a national conversation about how we need to revolutionize and think through the security situation in our country. Additionally, I think beyond conversations of the narratives that are there, it is important for the police to be properly and fully equipped for their work. Now, we've seen how matters to do with insurance and their pay has been discussed because it's important to them, their livelihoods. It's something that they need to handle very comfortably. We've seen something to do with how police officers are supposed to be, to be equipped even more with security cameras on their jackets. Now, we need to make sure that the police are safe and secure, whether it's about each of them having bulletproof jackets on patrols. We need to see how our expenditure in the security sector, especially for the police and military, is scaled up. I've seen the other day that now we've got the German machines as part of their fleets.
We have
seen now Volkswagens. I think the Touaregs and
chasing you down.
And others now. Yes. So now it's not just about the class of vehicles that are afforded to security officers, but I think much more than that. Ways of surveillance. Now, for example, people in this country have asked themselves many times, how come when a top guy has faced an instance of insecurity, all the security cameras seem to work and persons tracked down quite quickly and arraigned in courts. But when an ordinary or average citizen is faced with a security incident, those cameras incidentally are not working. So we need also to bring in an aspect of accountability, reasonably so, on the part of the police officers, on the part of citizens, because when you look at Article 10, Article 2 of our Constitution, part of those values of good governance include accountability, and yes, the rule of law, and yes, matter sustainable development. We cannot sustainably talk about pushing our business and the economy forward when we cannot sustainably and reasonably invest consciously in our security, from all sides of the perspective.
Okay. Very quickly, there's something that happened last week, and it's interesting what this city is turning into. And it's about the violent evacuation of a family in Westlands by a group of people. The auctioneer is in court already, And also the guys who authorized the evacuation have disappeared, except one who was arrested. I think someone per Masai. The other 2 or 3 are out. And it has been linked to land grabbing. And I don't know, what's your feeling, guys? Are we suddenly becoming a society of crooks?
You know, this issue of this harassment of people whose leases have lapsed is a known template. You understand? Ushaenda kwa polisi, ukawambia, oh, you know, officer, something, they say, you know, and then this happened, and then this, and then, as in, who doesn't know this story? Yeah, some person somewhere identifies a piece of land or a building somewhere in Nairobi whose lease has come to an end, and they decide, hii nyumba itakuwa yangu. Right? And so they do transactions behind it. They don't give, because ideally, by law, this person should be given first chance to renew their lease. If they are not interested, then, you know, they relinquish it. But then people go behind the scenes, they do transactions, and then they say, oh, now this land is now mine. Me, I have now bought it. It is mine. Please get out. How do you explain somebody who has lived in a family, on family property?
For years, for decades.
Years, generations even. Okay? Actually, somehow someone else has a title. We need to stop it. It is a known template of a crime. It happened a lot. I believe, wakati Sonko, when Sonko was the governor, I remember, there was a spate of these things. And what they do is they push, and then these people are forced to pay some amount under the table, not even like statutory rates to Ministry of Lands or wherever, and they have now forced to offer bribes and payments on the side so that they can retain their properties. And really, this is not right, because these are citizens of this country, and most of them tend to be Indians or old white families. It is not right, it is not fair, and it is a known template. So there must be now somebody somewhere within the security sector who understands how this crime is conducted and is able to protect these families. It's a shocking thing to see it happen so many years later when there's a familiarity. You know, sometimes when a new crime emerges and people don't know the nuts and bolts of how it works, it can give police officers or agencies a challenge in terms of dealing with it. But this one is known. It is known how it is done. It is known the operatives who do it. So I don't expect to see another case of the sort. And again, it is another attempt to see the response. So these people, they want to see how will the government respond to this one, so that the others can continue to conduct the same kind of crime. So again, it has to be dealt with decisively. I liked the action from the governor, in terms of trying to stop the eviction, although it didn't seem to stop this person. So again, the government has to act decisively to stop, because if this one is allowed to continue, you will hear more families in Westlands, more families in areas like Runda, more families in areas like Karen are going to suffer the same problem as leases begin to continue to lapse on their properties. So ni wakora tu bitok na ni vile una deal na wao. They are not very many. Not actually 90% of ordinary citizens are law abiding. So if this 10% of people who are giving problems to everybody else, let them be dealt with decisively within the law, so that iwe funzo kwao na wengine wenye fikra kama hizo.
What is astonishing and perplexing is the heightened impunity in this country on the part of certain individuals. You see, I wouldn't say that impunity is stinking to the high heavens because heaven cannot even permit impunity. I would say it stinks to the clouds. And I say... because look at it this way, that a police officer is alleged to have given a court order. A police officer. What definitive new level of courageous impunity is this?
I'm telling you.
And then they even defy a court order. The county government had given directives which were defied. This tells you that these criminals, these grabbers, are biting their thumb at the security, at the county government, at the national government. And perhaps we need to rethink the issue of public servants within ministries. I don't know whether periodic transfers would be very useful. Like, look, for this to happen, there must have been and there must be collusion by persons within the Ministry of Lands. Now,
could be.
Yes. So the Ministry of Lands, some personnel in there. When you look at the Land Controls Board at the county government, there could be persons as well, because for person X to know that a particular lease is expiring, there must be persons within the land ministry that are giving this information.
True.
And so it's important for
It's a whole system.
Yes, an inquiry to be done. And now, for example, within the lands registry, if somebody or persons have stayed there for the past 15 years,
They know,
what wouldn't they know?
They are a cartel.
Yes, or 10 years. So it's important that persons should be switched or transferred periodically to avert this kind of comfort and familiarity that persons get to have within these departments. So much so that they feel entitled, and in fact, they are at the controls of impunity within the land sector. And so I think moving forward, beyond the action being taken to these persons, these culprits that are at the front line, we need to go to the back end within the Ministry of Lands, at the national level and also lands at the county level, and see how is it that things can be managed so much that any person that was inclined to or linked to this issue of Westlands and much more should be dealt with, should be brought to book. Now, if at all, that lady would not have screamed herself hoarse and that family, then that land would have just gone like that. Beyond the compensation that should happen to that family, we should ask ourselves, to what extent is land grabbing happening in this country and in this city quite clandestinely? Now, these things are worrying. And of course, when you look at the provisions on land in the Constitution and the various statutes on land, you realize that there are various entitlements and rights, surface rights that individuals have to do with the property that they have. We must not feel, any person must not feel threatened on the possession or the possessory rights that they have on the land that they possess or they have. To them, whether it's under lease or otherwise. Okay. And so the county government, the Ministry of Lands should move quite expeditiously, quite firmly. And I think also the president should speak, or at the executive level, we must have some firmness. And if we get to have lessons learned on the part of those who are the pushers of impunity, I think that lesson will reverberate to far many that are clandestine land grabbers in this city.
All right.
It used to be that land that would be grabbed would be land that was empty, unoccupied land, mostly public land, or just some piece of land that maybe somebody bought, they don't know where it is. Now people are so ballsy, they are grabbing land, mali mtu anaishi. You are there with your house. Your people want to grab land from under your feet. It is insane. I think, it just speaks to the level of boldness, some of these criminals. But I remember something that the former Minister for Lands did, Farida Karonei, when she was trying to push these reforms and titling process. And I recall her saying that she's not going to get into trying to bring to book the people that they know within the ministry had been compromising the registry and aiding and abetting this land grabbing and land fraud issues. Because she said, if we go there, we are not going to have anybody left in the ministry. And that should tell you something. And so
the rot is so deep.
I'm telling you. And so she chose, as a policymaker, she said, I'm not going to focus on this fight. Let me do the titling, all right? Work with these people to do the titling, because if I try to go for them or bring them to justice, I'm not going to have anybody left to work with. But that also sends a signal. You understand? It cements and fortifies the impunity with which some of these people have been conducting themselves. And it was just a matter of time. It was just a matter of her exit like this. And they rear their ugly head and they continue with the same bad manners and the same wrong, conduct that they had been having. So I think someone will have to bite the bullet. I don't know who it is. I don't know whether it is now this administration or maybe the next one, or people will just keep kicking the ball, or we hope somehow these people retire.
they get out of the system naturally.
They get out of the system by natural attrition. I don't know. But someone will need to deal with these people at the Lands Ministry who have continued to support the perpetuation of land crimes in this country.
I think the solution is building up the system.
Yeah. It's always said that new brooms sweep clean. We have a new administration. I think they need to
have
sweep
an
clean.
opportunity.
Yes. Because really, while it is feared that the entire ministry would be, vacated or actually cleaned if at all swift action would be taken, but really what do we have to do? Because the perpetuation of this impunity itself is a threat to the protected rights in this country. And so I think the onus now is on the new CS for lands, the incoming PS, and all other officers, that if they sit pretty, if they sit on their laurels about how to deal with the impunity within this Ministry of Lands, then they will also be bought at a price and made comfortable by these guys, because they're deeply rooted. And if a mugumo tree is deeply rooted, we know what happens when we, as you said, when you try to shake it. It is you who will shake your back end. And so we need to find a way of uprooting and cutting down this mugumo tree that's deeply rooted by impunity.
Right. Okay, looking at the comments. Nicholas Koske, good morning from Nandi. Locked in from Bomet County. Major Estate Show is on fire. Thank you. Waipa Empire falling for live from Lloyd Narok County. Chris Yugas from Narok. Kennedy Ken Langat tuned in from Nanyuki. Good morning. Good morning to you. We was watching live from Lloyd Narok. Roger Saina. Good morning from Osori at Nandi. Good morning to you. Doro, all the way from the United States of America. Aro to you, Doro. Hope you doing well. Mr. Chere sema mbona mnacheka kwa matanga. LYDIA Mathia is watching. Asante Kimani Alex. The government need to recover. Shiro Mushayo Dongo. The font is kidogo. Does it say dot of the mountain? Yes. Dot of the mountain. I don't know what happened to the daughters. We'll get back to that. Yes, Ole Koipa falling from Lloyd Narok County. Keep to history there. Everyone is polished. Adi Mwanya. Good morning. Good morning to you. Charles Mongai, Glasgow, Scotland. Good to see you, my brother. Charles Mongai, all the way from Glasgow in Scotland. Askamebo, there are people that even if the president pulls down the sky and feeds them, will still remain the villain in their story. Give the man time. He's not a magician. Okay. Sante Adair. Koita, I would recommend the Director of Criminal Investigations, DCI Kenya, the use of equipment below to cap the rising cases of muggings in the streets of Nairobi. It's a teaser. An electroshock weapon is less lethal weapon that utilizes an electric shock to incapacitate a target by either temporarily disrupting voluntary muscle control and or through pain compliance. Good morning. I was there in 2002 when the Rainbow Coalition took power. There was the perfect moment to make institutional corruption precedents in Kenya. After that, it has become an uphill task. Okay, as on the corruption issues, remember you can also call in anytime 0779-800-010 or 0779-800-010. Bunge liko wazi 0779-800-010 or 779-800-010. 779-800-010. You can call in and also contribute to this morning conversation. Getting in straight into siasa. There seems the Yala positions or the Yala slots have rocked the boats of Azimio. But Odinga insists, yeah, we're good, tuko sawa. But Jubilee seems to be crying out and saying, we've been played. It has been a game of conmanship. There seems to be an onslaught against ODM's nominations, especially Winnie Odinga. I don't know. Is Yala they say what, the road that broke the camel's back? Will it be the road that will break the Azimio back?
Well, first, when you look at the East Africa Community Treaty, Article 50, provides that the member states will each recommend or provide 9 legislators to the East African Legislative Assembly. Now, Kenya is a member state of the East African East African Community, and a signatory to that treaty. These 9 persons that are supposed to be sent to IALA are persons that Parliament is supposed to approve. Now, very important questions get to arise. In fact, I have had this conversation about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, where people were asking, and it's a very significant discussion, since the establishment of the East African Legislative Assembly, what has that assembly achieved? In fact, I can tell you, Bitok, sitting here in this chair, that possibly close to only 0.5% of Kenyans are aware about the East African Legislative Assembly and anything that goes there, or even persons that have graced that assembly from Kenya.
What does it do by it?
Now, thing is, now you ask whether it's the camel that has broken or is breaking the camel's back. Let's face it. It is very disappointing and in very bad taste that persons that have been sent to Iyala have been what the Swahilis say vibaraka of the owners of political parties, at least most of the time. Now, the members of Azimio are crying foul by being shortchanged by ODM, or the persons that have been sent or nominated rather to Iyala. We've had Winnie Odinga mentioned, who is a daughter of Raila Odinga. We've had Kennedy Musyoka, for example, on the other side from Wiper, who has served the past 5 terms at Iyala. And by the way, I was asking a couple of guys, and we were asking ourselves, when Kennedy Musyoka, for example, was a member of Iyala the past 5 years, what has he achieved that would warrant him being sent there again for another 5-year term? Now, beyond the conversation about the significance of the Iyala, let's see, is it true then that the bigger brother in the Azimio, ODM, is shortchanging its members? The answer is true, is yes. Why is it not proper that the Azimio members would sit, even whether it's through their council meeting, which has not been convened, by the way, and have deliberations about how nominees will be recommended to Parliament from the part of Azimio and its constituent members, so that these other members would feel and should feel that their voices were heard before this list was made on the part of Azimio. Another thing is this. For example, when it comes to ODM party, whom did it consult to arrive? Forget the meeting that they had that was chaired by a former governor of Kakamega, Paranya. Do members of, for example, ODM feel that justice was done and the process was open on how the nominees were arrived at? Why is it that, for example, Jubilee is crying foul? We've seen Sabina Chege and company addressing the press and actually lamenting about how the process has been done and how they are feeling shortchanged. Now, these are elected and nominated leaders. These are political leaders of note. If political leaders are harrowing and are feeling that they've been shortchanged in the process, what about ordinary members of these parties? Now, if at all you look back at how these parties even conducted their nominations in the run-up to the elections, it tells you that transparency, openness, equity, fairness are not things that majority of these parties entertain or embrace. And so, yes, this Iyala thing has started the slippery road of the disintegration of the membership of Azimio. In any case, if the instruments of Azimio are anything to go by, then I think by, was it 11th or 12th, the period for compelling members to be bound or to be chained into Azimio has lapsed. If Jubilee wants to walk out, the liberty is theirs. If Wiper and other parties want to walk out, the liberty is theirs. But I think it is improper at how nominees from Azimio and these constituent member parties have been nominated and then their names sent to Parliament.
Lydia, this is a mere thing. Has it always been a gravy train? Is it a lunatic express to nowhere, or things are falling apart because they should be? Because now everyone, I remember at that time Babu came out and said, this was a very long con. Now Sabina has shown up again and said ODM was a long con. you know, and all things. So what's going on? Is this Yala thing going to be a breaking point for Azimio?
You know, Azimio, it was a contraption, put together for the singular purpose of not even pursuing power per se, but really locking out Ruto from accessing it. So their worst nightmare came to pass, and Ruto is president. So what is to keep Azimio together? Because the thing that they came together for, the thing they came together to prevent has already happened. So what you're seeing are symptoms of that lack of a congent purpose together, that, you know, what is to hold them together. Because I believe if they had the unity of purpose and unified purpose, they would find solutions to the challenges that they face. They would find avenues to sit down and debate. They would find room for consultation and stakeholder engagement as they conduct their business, as you often see in Kenya Kwanza. But because what brought them together is no longer active, it's no longer an active issue, it is now every man for himself. And it is not just every man for himself as in the parties within Azimio. It is every man for himself within the political parties within Azimio. So you can see Kioni signing out a letter with his own name on it. You understand? Notwithstanding that he's still holding the post of Secretary General of Jubilee, which is fairly a strong position. He wants to, on top of that, be the one to take the Yala post, leaving out people like Ngonjiri Wambugu, who are fighting. These were strong soldiers of the movement of Jubilee, and if you like, way before I think in fact he's the one who coined the Kieleweke or Tangatanga. I mean, somebody like that should be ideally rewarded. He was in the fight way even before Kioni ever got on board, or way before even somebody like Sabina got on board, and he's still out there hanging, just freezing out there in the cold. I think he's opening hotels and he's become a businessman and doing consultancies. So it is not surprising to any political scientist, really. The disintegration of Azimio is something that is predictable. It is inevitable because they were not brought together by a sense of purpose. It's not like Kenya Kwanza, which had an agenda, that we want to free this country from the shackles of, state capture and extrajudicial killings and those kinds of things, and let's change the economic model. You don't have that sense when you look at an Azimio, because even their agenda never really came out. The clarity in terms of the purpose for it. And in fact, some of us as a generation, we are, in retrospect, extremely happy, that Azimio did not take power. Because I doubt anybody near our age mate would have made it to cabinet. Because what you have is Raila Odinga is of a particular generation. People rule with their peers. And then the people who are coming after, who are seen now as young people, are the Ngilus of this world and the Ongwes of this world. There was going to be very limited opportunity for people like... being kind. So you're not going to have somebody like Murkomen becoming a cabinet secretary. Do you see? Or somebody like Korir becoming a principal secretary in that government. So it is inevitable. These Yala positions, like he has said, I guess they're just political opportunities because we are yet to feel the impact that they have, either on the progress of the East African community. Perhaps they're able to harmonize tariffs. We don't know. They don't give annual reports. Maybe they should publicize the work that they do so that we are able to link perhaps some of the progress that is made in the East African community to the work that they do at that legislative assembly. Maybe they need to help us see connect the dots of their input. But let me also say this, Bitok, and I think it's, I don't know, maybe it's a little controversial, but I have a problem with people picking on Winnie Odinga. This lady is the daughter of Raila Odinga, and apart from the period when Raila was the prime minister in this forced relationship that was there with Kibaki, she has been the daughter of an opposition leader. So I don't even know you can describe her as a dynasty, as it were. I don't even think, because she's been the daughter of an opposition leader who has not really enjoyed the trappings of power, as it were. So I don't know why people find her, her candidature for ESC so inappropriate. Because I don't think there's any benefit that has accrued to her unfairly, or just because she's the daughter of this gentleman. If anything, as a family, the wife to Raila Odinga and the children have really been the ones to suffer the consequences of his consistent campaign for democracy and liberation in this country. I mean, when he was in prison, where were these children? Because they were children, isn't it? And you have to see Winnie in that perspective to be able to respect her pursuits, and her agency. She's a human being. She has agency in and of herself, away from her father. And I think whatever qualms we may have with the dad and whatever things he does with ODM and how he runs that party, I think the sins we may associate with Raila Odinga should not be cast upon Winnie Odinga. And I think people should review her on her own merit. And the members of parliament who are going to vote on this candidature
should be objective.
Should really give her an ear, let her pitch her bid, and let her have a chance like any other woman and young woman in this country. She deserves a fair shot at opportunity. Okay. So I would urge people to pull back on the.
I would say that it's not that Winnie Odinga is an easy target, but the question I think in the room is, or anywhere publicly is, when ODM was arriving at the names of the persons that were nominated, what was the process and how inclusive and transparent was it, to the extent that everybody felt that there was an equal chance for them to have that nomination. When WIPO was nominating its persons, what kind of process was there, and was it equal and fair?
If you ask that, then you can ask that of anything. You can ask that of, did everybody in UDA who felt that they could be a minister given a fair shot at, do you understand? Do you see what I'm saying? Was everybody, do you understand? It was because political parties are also they're political. Okay, you have to be able to. It's a game of distribution of resources and opportunities.
Of course it is. But look, let's face it. These parties are not private property. They are funded by the Exchequer. To the extent that the Exchequer finances these political parties, then the ordinary citizen, the members of these parties, need to ask these very important questions. And yes, agreeably, any person, whether it's Winnie Odinga, whether it's Kennedy Musyoka, whether it's Jeremiah Kioni, each of these persons should be looked at in their own right as individuals, as ambitious persons, as professionals.
Even Jeremiah, we need to look at him.
Yes, because the ground has to be leveled. All right? The ground has to be leveled. Nonetheless, of course, it is curious that a person who is the Secretary General of a party is recommending themselves to a particular position. We also saw Nick Salat recommending himself for KANU, for Iala. So it is distasteful. Yes. And so when you read those letters, you see it is about fighting for survival.
But let me ask you, JAVAS, does it change the next step, whether you came in as a political party nominee or not? Does it change the roadmap for you as a person in terms of that you have to garner the votes from the members of parliament yourself?
Actually, for me, I'm looking at it from the front end. The utility of each of these individuals at IALA. For instance, and that's why I questioned the issue of the suitability of somebody like Kennedy Musyoka. When Kenya had an issue with Tanzania about the issue of trade and cattle, etc.
Chicken were roasted alive.
Yes. We did not see Kennedy Musyoka raise a finger or a voice. And he was there, a member of
That's
exactly.
But those seats should be seen as affirmative. He should just...
Yes. He has been there for 5 years.
Yeah.
He has not even issued a statement, a presser, or even a tweet. condemning the issues that Kenyan traders faced
Maybe
in
you
the
call
hands
the
of
Minister
Tanzania.
of Trade.
Yeah, no, but you see, was the call private? We did not even see a courtesy call, even in person. So if at all his presence at Yale for 5 years was just as useless as an appendix in a human body, it is not useful then for him to be sent there for another 5 years.
Is the appendix that useless?
Which function does it serve, at least in the present times?
What was it supposed to be doing originally?
Is it supposed to be gathering like the wasteful elements of your food?
But science and biology has demonstrated that you can do without it.
You can do with a lot of things, including one kidney, but it doesn't diminish the utility.
So we can do away with Kennedy Musyoka in Yala this time round.
Tungoje kwanza ijaze mawe. Unajua appendix you only remove it when it has filled up. So
ametupa mawe kwa human body.
let's wait for it to fill up. Now, there's an angle on the issues of loan waivers that you've had about 50% loan waiver for existing loans, digital money, or digital loans from banks and also other providers. The government, the CBK, has instructed the banks to give a 50% waiver on these loans. Now, does that not sound as much as government interfering with private business? Because if I give you a loan, I'm trading money.
You know, if I owe you, let me tell you, in this country we have a problem with debt. We have a problem. People do not pay their debts, starting with the government. You know, nobody pays their debts. I don't know what's wrong. We have a bad culture. I think, in fact, KEPSA had come up with a report some time back and said, we have a problem of people not paying their debts. Supermarkets are not paying suppliers. Government is not paying its service providers. And borrowers are not paying their fulizas and their, M-Shwari loans. Now, if I owe you money and I have told you I'm not able to pay, and I have, that's the end of that story. I'm not able to pay, and that's it. And so you pile on penalties. Actually, I suspect the reason why these banks are open to considering this issue is because once you have defaulted, for example, on a. And the reason I know a lot of this is not because it is me. It is because I know people who are in these situations. So, tuseme uko na hii KCB loans, hizi zinapeanangwa. What they do, let's say you owe 30,000 and you're unable to pay for whatever reasons. Mostly it was that time of COVID, lots of these businesses went under. After the lapse of the period, they begin to pile on penalties. They begin to pile on interest. And before you know it, you don't owe 30,000, you owe 60,000, you owe 80,000. So you see, by actually cutting the amount in half, and that's why they are selective. They're not saying all of the persons on CRB. They're saying some 4-point-something individuals, meaning they have picked them specifically and profile them for specific within specific parameters. And I suspect it is these individuals whose debts have accumulated past 100%, sort of like doubled because of the penalties and interest charged on the debt. So I owed 30,000, but now it is 70,000. What is the bank has no issue halving that amount back to 35. You understand? So, and I suspect that's why that particular figure, 4.5 something is
4.1.
Those are the people that perhaps they have picked. But more importantly, if I owe you that 30,000, let's even assume there's no this penalty or whatever, and the risk is I lose the entire 30 or I get 15. I'd rather get my 15 than lose the entire 30. Because it also pulls resources now from the people who have insured these debts, and it becomes, a kind of like a vicious cycle that will suck everybody's money into this. So that 30 billion shillings is not little money, and that's the kind of money that they're talking about in this instance. So if you're at risk of losing 30 billion, and instead of 30 billion, you only lose 15, that's a better deal, isn't it? So I don't see the difficulty, and the central bank has worked with these creditors. They have sat down on that. They were not told that you have to do this way. They have sat down and figured, what can we do? What reliefs can we offer our clients? And of course, they have looked at their books, they have looked at their laws, they have looked at the compliances, they have looked at things like the CBK regulations that govern banks, and they have determined that this is a plausible way forward. All right. So I don't see the difficulty, because it is driven from themselves. It would be a problem if they were being told that you must do this, you must do this. No. They're the ones who are saying, okay, this is the kind of relief that we can offer. And I hope that everybody else follows suit. People like Helb, who gave us 150,000 shillings, and then down the line, you owe them 1.3 million shillings. And then here this other one, you pay them over a period of 10 years. People who have been in employment, I think I saw a story by Oliver Madenge, that over the course of his employment, he has paid actually more than 500,000 shillings because of the deductions. But then when he goes back to help, he still owes another 600, 700,000 shillings. Wow. Because, so there's a way these debts are done, the penalties, the interest, and I think everybody just needs to figure out how to finalize the issue of debt. On that issue of debt, again, Bitok, let me say this. And I feel like I should start an organization. JAVAS, maybe you should join me. We have a problem.
Why is that you don't want me to join you?
Bitok, by the way, you should be the first partner, because you even have this platform. Kuna shida?
Shida gani?
Serikali hailipi watu madeni. County governments owe so many people so much money. And then the worst thing is this. There is no price. There is no cost to this defiance of this refusal to pay. The only person who pays is this person who is owed money. They continue to pay in financial distress. They continue to pay and continue to follow up their money. They continue to pay in lack of finance, lack of credit to finance their subsequent businesses. But there is no consequence to the institutions. There is no consequence to these public officers and accountants who procured goods knowing very well there was no money either in the budget or in the account to pay for these services that they are procuring. And I think, Bitok, there's a big conversation to be had there.
There's a problem.
Because people are being disinherited in this country. Yeah. Your father goes, does business with the county government, maybe worth 5 million shillings. They're supposed to be paid maybe 5 or 6 million. Yeah. All right? You finish school, class 8. You are supposed to go to university. Your father's money is caught up in the county government. So he's not able to take you to school. Okay? Several years later, even if that money is eventually paid, where do you go? You did not go to university. So we are disinheriting people, all right? And then the worst thing is people are not able to agitate to be paid. They are voiceless. These suppliers are voiceless because they don't want to be victimized. They don't want to be seen that wewe tunakupea kazi alafu unakuja kutupigia makelele. So hatutakupea kazi ingine. So nobody wants to. So it's not just nobody can agitate. They're just quiet. So they are all suffering in this thing. We must find a way for somebody to pay for this refusal to settle pending bills. And I suspect one of the best solutions we can give is to put interest on monies owed. All right? So if you owe somebody money, which you're supposed to pay after delivery, let's even give you 6 months. All right? Let's even give people even 1 year to pay bills that have been procured by a particular government agency. Past that, let us put interest. So that every day you stay with somebody's money, you pay for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, Bitok, it is important for us to agree that majority of people doing business with the government, especially at the county level, are in distress. Today, sitting here, more than 10,000 businesses have been auctioned because of failure to service their loans to the loaning entities. Now, the issue is not even that many of these county governments are refusing to pay. The issue is the bad manners amongst some of these governors. They write a justification and accompanying documents to the control of budget that these are the pending bills and that they are going to pay these pending bills within this period of time. With that justification,
They
the
get
control
money.
of budget releases that money for the pending bills. The moment counties receive this money,
They
it's
incur
diverted
other
to,
bills.
to other bills and other payments that other than these that are supposed to be paid as pending bills. Then I think action should be taken against such kind of governors.
Okay.
Another thing is new governors taking office and failing to settle pending bills from the previous administration. Some have refused. There's some people who did business with county governments in 2013, 2014, 2015. To date, they have not been paid.
I have one from 2015
Yes.
Yeah?
to date.
Yes. So what explains this?
This is criminal.
And yet, when you check the records of the control of budget, you find that certain companies have been listed as justified for purposes of processing payments to those respective county governments. Action should be taken against that kind of governors, whether they're in office or they have vacated, they have left office by way of completing their terms or impeachment, whatever. In fact, it should be seen from this prism that through the Public Procurement and Disposal Act and Public Finance Management Act, if at all a service provider has rendered their services to a county government and they are owed this money, they have finished, they even some of them have been issued with certificate of completion and they have not been paid, and the county government is refusing to pay them by failure to pay them, then that governor, for example, should be seen through the lenses of not complying with the laws of the land, of Public Finance Management Act, County Government Act, and Public Procurement and Disposal Act. In fact, remember that when you look at the grounds for impeachment of a governor, it's violation of the law. So if at all these respective statutes that are enablers of Article 174 and Article 175 of the county government, of the Constitution on devolved government, the objects of, then I think action should now be taken against these county governments and governors. Alternatively, a class suit, if it's agreeable by all these service providers, but as Lydia has indicated,
They
some
don't
of them
want to, yeah.
fear they'll be victimized,
Victimization, yes.
or they will not get another opportunity to serve these county governments. But if this county government that you've served through delivery of services has not paid you for the past 8 years or the past 12 years, do you think they will be keen to give you business again?
But you see, it's not even that. So I service this county. They refuse to pay me. I struggle. I don't get paid. I stop dealing with that county. But the county finds another fool. There's always another. There's always another person.
There's always a very
who
long
is
line of
eager.
fools.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So now you've got this large spectrum of individuals who have been looped into these deals by county governments, and then maybe I leave your county, now I go and do this other county, and this county does the same thing to me. And what you're creating now is a trap where people's money, the money of Kenyans is leaving bank accounts and sinking into this hole called pending bills. There has to be consequences which have to be worked into the PFMA Act and into the Public Procurement and Disposal Act. There has to be a penalty. And that penalty, either in interest or action taken against the accounting officers, because the governor will tell you, I don't pay. I don't know about payment. In fact, I don't know what happens with accounts. They'll always distance themselves. Let there be consequences for individual officials who are procuring and who are responsible for payment, and let there be a relief for the person whose money is being held in the nature of interest on that money, so that if you don't pay me, sawa, first of all, you go and explain to somebody, I don't know who needs to form a pending bills task force or commission, and then in the meantime, even as we sort out the dispute, my money is earning interest.
I know of a number of service providers who have approached, some of them written to control of budget, complaining about the lots of pending bills. And that it's against such kind of letters and complaints that the control of budget has demanded that before processing of any money of the shareable formula to county governments, these pending bills must be provided
and
for.
And it never works.
Yes.
You could already try to push. In fact, I remember there's a time the president himself was pushing now, saying all these pending bills, let's even pay the ones that are AGPO, the ones that are for women and young people. And the president was holding meetings with his ministers and PSs on a regular basis for a period of, and I remember when they go with their list, they say, okay, Sisi, as a ministry, Aki, Sisi agpo zetu ni 700 million. Okay, we have this for women and we have this. That's what you need to pay these youth and women. Yes. You are sure? Yes. Okay. Yatani, tuma pesa. Ama, you think that was Henry Rotich. Send this 700 million to Ministry ABCD. My friend, the minute that money lands,
it goes into other use.
It goes into now other bills.
Yes.
And then tomorrow they say, okay, we still have 700 million agpo.
So that's why I said action being taken will be very important. But I think, again,
the accountability.
Now on the issue of the CBK later, on the relief for persons that have been listed in the CRB, you imagine, and I think I read somewhere in the papers, which should be about 3 weeks or a month ago, that one of the leading lawyers, senior counsel, has been listed in CRB with a loan of about 1,800 shillings, if you saw that.
It was this gentleman.
I don't want to mention his name. So, persons listed for 2,000 shillings, 15,000 shillings, 30,000 shillings, or even 60,000 shillings or 100,000 shillings. I think this is welcome relief. And it is a consciousness on the part of this government to see how to help persons who are struggling to make some of these payments. It may astonish you, or surprise you rather, that there's somebody who is struggling to pay rent in Kibra or in Madari of 500 shillings a month, or 800 shillings, rent per month. Yet because they took some money when they were in distress, they borrowed maybe about 2,000 shillings, and have been struggling to pay because of business struggles, and including loans, the fines accrued, this person is now supposed to pay 5,000 shillings. If this person is struggling to pay a rent of 800 shillings,
how would they pay the loan?
To pay 8,000 shillings. And so I think this is welcome relief. I have seen that the relief period is 6 months. I think it's a good thing. What needs to be done is now to see how also circulation of money and ease of doing business is encouraged, so that now those persons who've been having this kind of small loans get to settle them within that period. And if need be, upon the expiry of that 6-month period, if even an extension is given, either an extension be given or write them off as bad debt. I think it will be a very good thing, because the William Ruto administration is a hustler government. It's the hustlers who are in this in these manacles of small soft loans. Let the government shoulder that burden. In fact, let that loan
the debts are written off because they're insured. So when you are loaning to the bottom of the pyramid on phone, you knew the risk. So now if the money is not paid, half of it, after 6 months, Apana, write it off. Apana, ulichukua risk. It's a business risk. You made the money that you made. You walk away and count your losses, start again. And okay, let me not say that because it's not good for business. But
the day is good. The day you have to lead you to utajua.
Unajua nikwambie, unajua watu wanangangana huko nje bito.
Unaenda unaambia tu basi pay
hizo 6 months hata weza.
Yes.
Utapata hata hizo 6 months tu na umeshakata nusu. Bado anangangana tu haki.
Do you know, in some public hospitals, you go there and you are told to buy a book. Yeah? Go to villages and hamlets where some of us come from. A health center, they tell you that, have you come with a book? Go purchase a book of 30 shillings. And somebody is struggling to purchase a book of 30 shillings. Go buy a syringe. I mean, people are still struggling.
And you know why, Bitok? Because every coin of any money they make is accounted for. These are the people who walk to work because they cannot afford to spend 60 shillings on transport to and from work every day. Because if they spend that, they'll not be able to pay rent. Or if they spend that, they will not eat. These are people who have budgeted everything on a daily basis that they can only eat skuma ya shilingi 10, na nyanya ya shilingi 5, na ugali ya shilingi 200. They have counted every shilling. So any extra anything, they have no capacity to absorb any financial shock. And 30 shillings of buying a book in a hospital is financial shock.
Yes,
they cannot handle it.
And that's why I think government should, either these debts are written off, because I said of the hustler government. You see, Bitok, when I came into this city, I came with 2 trousers and 3 shirts. A pink trouser, a green trouser,
You're lucky.
a
Those
black
are
shirt,
a lot of
a black,
clothes.
yes, and a green one. I mean, I came here a real hustler.
Those are a lot of clothes, but
Yes.
Where were they
yes,
so colored?
Yes, and
What was happening?
That's what I could afford.
Buy from Busia.
Yes, and
They are
remember,
blue, they are purple.
yes, and I would walk long distances to look for work. And when I got my first job, by the time you're leaving your small house to the place where I was working, I'm getting to that place, I'm smelling like a lion. Already the sweat, the heat, somebody would think that you've been bathing and you've just not wiped yourself, but it's the sweat and the fatigue. You get to the office and you're tired already, and it's 8 a.m. And so the struggles of hustlers in this city are real. So I think this government, being a hustler government, should come and
take care of hustlers.
No, they can't. No, you see, you cannot tell the government to pay these debts. These private entities, once this period of 6 months is finished, whatever is left unpaid, see, they just be nice.
What you mean, Mokota?
Let's cut our losses.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Nancy Mirotse from the US is saying, happy to start a fair learning program. It will be interesting to hear about that. Please, Nancy, you can let us into it. It will be interesting to hear what the proposal is all about. Well, I agree with Lydia that when your Dinga deserves a chance, ODM packaged her as a privileged princess. She's a hardworking young lady, young woman, and should have been given an opportunity to fight out in an MP position in Nairobi. She would have won and become a person of her own. Giving her a position on a silver platter didn't sell. Makes it look like the only thing she has is the family name, yet she has more. Okay. That is someone who is disagreeing with you, Lydia. And in other news as well, if you want to die very quickly, you thread with county government. If you feel unasikia kama umechoka.
But if you want to,
Die
very
quickly.
quickly.
Trade with the county government.
isn't it?
Nasikia like kill me quick.
Kill me quick.
No, you see, let's face it. In the county government, sir,
Unajua, come out count. Let me tell you, the best people to trade with in this country is parastatals, because they actually pay most of the time. They pay within the right timeline.
If you are trading with the
mainstream
counties,
ministries, na county governments,
yes. But you see, in county governments, for any monies to be paid to particular companies, the governor is aware and has to authorize.
So then let the governors do the business with themselves.
And it's not
why
that,
are they not paying?
It's not that they're
other
sending
people?
anywhere. But you see, go to all these counties. There is no company that will do serious business with any county government and the governor is not aware.
So these ones who are not paid is what is political.
Of course it is political. And some of them, and you see, like let's ask this question. Since 2013, persons who've served as governors, how many are not billionaires? How did they make their billions? These are watasema ni God maze. But it's
My God. The Saja.
Try.
Yes.
Niko try.
So I think we need to get...
Negoga ni amani. Negoga.
Tunajaribu.
Negoga amani. All right, and finally, I think it's 1 minute to 30 minutes past 9 or 9:30. Now, Nairobi County is still stuck. Why?
At Nairobi West?
Nairobi County is not moving.
That's a temporary issue.
Kamekwama.
Na CECs.
Yeah.
You know, the person who gave those orders in the court to say that somehow, I don't know which tribe or which religion has been left out. And then on the strength of that, issued orders stopping the vetting of the CECs. I thought that was judicial overreach. It's one of the many examples of judicial overreach, in my view, because the appointment of CECs is a political process, which you must allow to conclude in the political competition that is happening within a particular community. You must allow people to arrive at their political settlements. For example, Meru has not found a political settlement around their issues, all right? But it is a political issue. Nairobi should have been allowed to debate their issues through their elected representatives in the assembly. Let the assembly look at the CECs and determine that we believe that there's a problem of balance with this team. And so therefore we reject it. It's supposed to be a political process. No, you cannot interject in between to force the governor to appoint who exactly. And also, these orders, what precedent do you want to set?
Okay.
By saying which religion, okay, na Makorino? Okay, so you put a Muslim.
So Makorino
watasema nini, na Waindi watasema nini. You cannot tell us that you are now stopping the CECs because of a particular religion is not, or a particular tribe is not there. Because first of all, there are only 10 CECs. So which tribe and which religion is supposed to be demonstrated or shown in that? The only threshold we have in the Constitution for which everybody must abide is the 2/3 gender one. But the other ones, there is no particular threshold for religion, and there is no framework. So I think that the judge needs to relook at those orders, and I suspect they were issued ex parte. So let's hope that when there's an inter-parties hearing and the matter is canvassed adequately, that the judge will see the error in his ways in issuing those orders, so that the county government can proceed. But I have it on good authority, and good authority here is the governor himself, that nothing in Nairobi has stalled. Things are moving on well, and there's no lacuna, there's no lag, everything is going on well. Of course, having a team would be better and easier for him, but Nairobi is, what do you call it? The state of Nairobi is solid.
Now, I don't want to comment
I expect that.
I don't want to comment on
you expect me to say something good about Nairobi County.
On the Meru County.
I
don't want to comment about it because it's a fiasco. I mean, today, like I've said in the past, that citizens of this country and even perhaps Meru would even be mistaken to think that Baichu is the deputy governor, because he's more prominent than CECs, the 3 CECs that were approved, and the deputy governor of that county. In fact, if you ask me right now who is the deputy governor of Meru, I would tell you it's Baichu. I mean, really. Not on record, though. Because, I mean, it's a fiasco, and let us imagine, pray that Bishop Kawira Mwangaza will have the spirit of wisdom and proper governance descend upon her.
Hallelujah.
So that she handles that county properly. But on the issue of Nairobi, I think I would say that the county executive membership is not a religious council. And it is important for us to appreciate that not every religion can be represented there. Not every tribe can be represented there. Not every age group can be represented there. It is upon the judicious nature of the governor to determine who is it that can ably help him move the agenda of the county government forward. On that basis and on that score, I think while the courts are there to try facts, it is also important that we, the people and organizations, must not be ridiculously litigious to the extent that we want to forestall operations of leadership and governance merely for expediency's sake, or some want just to go on record for having litigated. This seat is very important and must be governed and move forward swiftly and quite quickly. Now, well, when you look at the composition of Governor Sakaja's team for the CECs, I think it's an exciting, competent, energetic team. And there are persons that I would really look forward to see how they execute their respective mandates. These institutions that have gone to court, whether they want to have a Bajuni in the CEC's team, whether they want to have a Corino, a Muslim, a Christian, we are not going to have CECs offering prayers for the governance and the leadership of Nairobi County. It is professional competence that is of issue. And so somebody saying that particular minorities, yes, minorities are supposed to be included, and that's the gender issue, the minorities issues, and the regional representation when it comes to matters inclusivity. And inclusivity is, of course, a principle of good governance as it is in our constitution. But this inclusivity is not for purposes of poster faces. It is for purposes of execution of mandate. And speaking as a lawyer, I would say that it is important for us also to consider that the operation of law, the issues of inclusivity and good governance that are supposed to be embraced by leaders, by governors, by cabinet secretaries, by president, are issues that should be commonsensical to even all of us. And I think that suit is not in good taste.
Okay.
And this judge, what was he thinking?
Yeah, it's not in good taste.
I mean, he should have let the thing go on as he listens to these people, knowing very well that it has no merit. But you can, and also just because, who did they ask whether there is a Muslim in that? Did they ask these CECs, are you a Muslim? There could be a Muslim there, only that they are not looking like
me. I have a Muslim name, so I can get a job.
Anyway, we will judge Mimi na mkosoa yeye because people will always take frivolous things to court. It is up to you to give it legs or not, and I think the judge.
But also, how do we ensure that every other person is? You cannot have everybody in government anyway. Even national government cannot carry everybody. But how do you figure out this inclusion thing? Because it seems to be a conversation now that is going on. And
it's always been there, and you can always arrive at these balances. And I think Sakaja's CCs are fairly balanced because he cannot have everybody on there. Also, I believe it's a political process. All right? If people did not put up, the right approach, to the political journey towards that arrival of that station, mnauliza maswali gani?
Mambo ya Meru, mambo ya kawaida. So I spoke to an MCA. I've been trying to secure an interview with the governor, but so the MCA tells me, so they rejected the nominees for CC positions. And they were like, after we reject now, you have to come down and have a conversation with us, the running of the county. So guess what Kawira does? The good bishop. The good bishop is like, okay, so you have approved 3. So it's supposed to be 10.
I'll work with 3.
Yeah. So he said, now he only needs 6 CECs. So 3 is a quorum. Then he appointed the rest as advisors.
When it comes to politics, in Kenya or elsewhere, you don't lead by the thorax. You lead by the balance of wisdom and interests. Now, look, for instance, just the other day, Governor Kawira had a meeting with the county administrators. Who was sitting next to her in the meeting of county administrators? The husband. Now, let's face it. Kawira's husband, Governor Kawira's husband, is not a public servant, is not a state officer, is not a government official.
He is by extension.
No, you see, the law does not appreciate that extension. I have read all laws about devolved governance, devolution in this country, every enabling in a statute. It is important that while we know that these governors do not come from trees and forests, that they have got social support bases, that is their families. Why would somebody put their husband forward as though they are using them as survival crutches to execute their mandate? The only support that most of these spouses issued is when they were holding the Bible for them when they were taking the oath. After that, really, did Baichu take oath of office? Unless it is in a different constitution and a different oath, but not the one that was taken.
Now, this is another thing where men blame women for their bad manners. Like how they say, this girl child, no, these women, they need to focus on the boy child instead of men doing their boy children things themselves. Anyway, I have a son now. I think I'm a little more balanced. But this is what I want to say. It is not Kawira Mwangaza's. Okay, she's the governor. But I do believe that there is opportunity for Kina JAVAS here, and his council of elders, men,
to talk to Baichu.
To go and talk to Baichu and get him to pull back, because in our culture, you cannot expect now a woman in the position of Kawira, who already has so much power. If she attempts to tell this gentleman, toka kwa space yangu, you might find that now she's compromising the harmony of the family.
But you see,
it is best that he pulls away himself, by himself.
Lydia, we have got very good examples. Look at Governor Anne Waiguru.
No, I know.
Look at Governor Mbarire.
But now this one is behaving badly.
Yes.
So do you understand what I'm saying? We know the spouses of these governors.
Yes,
and they are the ones who act in the manner that they do, and that's why they enable their spouses to do the business that they do the way they do it. But I don't expect that it is Cecily Marida who told the husband, "Well, niskai kuona kwa mkutano yangu." You understand? You see what I'm saying? It should come to you. But now that it is not occurring naturally to this Baichu gentleman, where are the
Someone
men?
has to whisper.
Someone needs to go and speak nicely in a way that is understood, and they pull him away from this, so that he is doing it of his own volition. Because you are putting this lady in a very difficult position. If she's the one to now go and push this husband, and you see, she really tried. She was saying, "I'm going to give him some roles to be hustler ambassador." She really tried to get some applauses from the. She's trying to manage this guy, but this guy is unmanageable.
I think, Lydia, what can be done is that well-wishers should organize various musical extravaganzas for Mbaichu to go and perform.
You should be singing through.
Yes, in
Congo, you should invite him to your county so that he leaves Meru.
Busia, goes to the US.
Exchange programs.
Yes. So when he's going there to perform, he's a musical,
he leaves the government to work.
So let him have a very, engaging itinerary of musical performances so that he can let their wife to run the county government of Meru.
I'm telling you.
Now our guitar has now also become an instrument of power. It's a sword. All right, let me have your tackles of the day. I'll start with you, Javas. Your tackle of the day is your parting shot.
Well, first, I appreciate the invitation here. But I would say that we as a people, we as citizens in this country, are having a moment in time that's quite consequential in the future history of this country by seeing how the William Ruto administration is executing its mandate. If we want this government to fail, we would be so awful, and the worth of citizenship should not even be stored upon us because of such kind of negative energy and measure. I think citizens in this country are very anxious. They have got high expectation about the delivery of commitments by this administration. As we expect and hope that this administration executes its mandate fully, it's also important for us to accompany those expectations with prayers and goodwill that they execute it. We're not saying that give this administration eternity of time to perform, but we are saying that just 60 days into office is not time enough for us to start chiding and pointing fingers and of accusation and imagining failure. But I think if at all we were to compare the kind of energy and determination of presidents that have taken office in this country, from the time of Jomo Kenyatta, we were not born, the time of Moi, we were not born, the time of even Mwai Kibaki and Daniel Arap Moi, rather, and even Uhuru Kenyatta, and even now William Ruto, we would see that the kind of energy that has been exhibited by Dr. William Ruto since he took office is some kind of energy that is giving so much promise. And I think as a citizen in this country, as a man, as an ambitious person, as a person who is in the space of governance and law, I think I'm quite optimistic about the direction that this country is taking.
Lydia.
My parting shot, Bitok, is on Hustler Fund. I'd like to encourage anybody.
It's getting mixed up every day. As day goes by, it keeps mutating.
What?
The fund.
The fund. So you see, there is opportunity for people to now give input into how they would like the fund to run. There are forums that are being held across the country. There are about 9 forums. Those 9 forums bring together a number of counties. County commissioners are expected to mobilize certain categories of people, circles, cooperatives, borders, farmers, to sit in those forums and give feedback. But if you're not able to make it to any of those physical forums, you can write a memorandum to the National Treasury and take it. There's a physical copy, or you can send an email, and there's the email is provided on the National Treasury's website. You put together your thoughts and submit. Don't wait for the regulations to come out and be passed in Parliament, and then you say somehow, we were discriminated. No, we were left out. So it is time for people to input. This is the season. This is the week. This week is when the National Treasury is collecting feedback. And there's a template that has been put there. There's a form which you can fill and give your views. So I want to just alert all the listeners, of this particular platform that usiwachwe nyuma. Kama uko na maoni kuhusu Hustler Fund, chukua kalamu na karatasi, andika kitu, chukua computer, type kitu, tuma email kwa hizo email addresses so that we can enrich the regulations ourselves from the Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action. We have a few comments on that, and the CS, Madam Aisha Juma, will be presenting the views of the ministry. I mean, we have a lot of experience in terms of these funds, having ran Uwezo, National Government Affirmative Action Fund, Uwezo Fund, Women Enterprise Fund, Youth Enterprise Development Fund. Remember when the ministry had the youth docket. So there's a wealth of knowledge within the ministry, and we'll be presenting a lot of those insights and views back to the National Treasury. So everybody should do the same so that we can enrich the regulations.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming in. It's always a pleasure to have you. Asante sana for honoring the invitation, JAVAS. Thank you, Lydia, for always making time for us.
Thank you, Bitok, for inviting me.
We always miss you. And, we're happy to see you with your bottle.
Hata sijakunywa maji yangu.
We are very happy to see you with your bottle. I hope she's doing well. All right, it's a pleasure to have you. For the tacklers as well who have joined us for the last 2 hours, it's always a pleasure to have you. I always tell you that without you, the tackle could never be. You're the one that makes us keep doing this. We really appreciate your support. Let's keep it going. Very quickly, if we can look at the newspaper headlines very quickly. Gazeti iko tayari. Looking at the Daily Nation, place junior high school in primary. Place junior high in primary, says parents. Okay, so in junior high school should be in primary. Revealed a new push to create 5 counties. Gara's team. It's supposed to have new counties. Migori, there's another Elgon. I don't know. There's some counties that are coming up, new counties. Interesting times to be alive. I don't know if the governors that we have already are doing well. So that now you're saying the Lord shall bless you with more governors. Other the ones that you have are very good. So the Lord is adding onto your plate. Painful charge of slum dwellers living with HIV/AIDS. Very sad stories, right? Very sad statistics as well. Neurosurgeon looks back on his longer career. Namani Omolo, intelligence key to secure Kenya. Okay, he said he's worth 450 million, I think. Thereabouts. Why lawyer MPs? Machakos weekend retreat flopped. Interesting story to read. Looking in at the People Day, Gangs Day is numbered. Okay. Kithure Kindiki came out yesterday, Guns Blazing, and said, we are coming for you. You said you're going to dare us, we are coming for you. We'll make major changes, PS nominee tells vetting team, mambo imeanza hapo. Rest on to free debtors from digital loans. Okay? I think we've also spoken on that. Azimio leaders move to save coalition unity. Maasla wapumua. Haya, benki kuu yataka wakopeshaji kufuta nusu ya madeni waliokopa na kushindwa kulipa. Wakenya milioni 4.2 waliokopa kwa njia ya simu lakini wakashindwa kulipa pia waongezewa muda hadi Mei mwaka 2023 kulipa salio la madeni wanayodaiwa na benki pamoja na wakopeshaji wengine. Wajenzi wapata kaburi la halaiki shule Taita Taveta. KDF tayari kukabili waasi kule DRC. Faida ya yoga kwa afya, polisi 12 washtakiwa. Ni mambo ya Baby Pendo and other cases of extrajudicial killings. The standard criminals run a riot as security chief talk staff. And I've been seeing conversations. People are saying Kindiki is not inspiring the confidence that they expect from that docket. I don't know. Yani lazima mwanaume ngurume ndio mjua ako serious. Nasema ati mheshimiwa ako na soprano.
Unakumbuka Lenko? I think he's having the same issues as Lenko. I think he will prove people wrong. He's quite, he is a professor, my friend. You know? So don't underestimate him at any cost.
Yeah, I think he's good, he's firm, but he needs now to demonstrate that firmness. And we need to see him out there more. We also need to see the Inspector General of Police out there more. And like I said earlier, the synergy between the two and other security officers and giving the assurance to them is something that will also give impetus to the delivery of Professor Kindiki. But I think he's able. It's not about the roaring. Because the tiger does not have to announce integrity. We just need to see him. If it's a question of giving orders and working with the security sector personnel, but not this thing of giving the grace period is something that they should do away with. Let them just be firm, not just from their speeches, but even from the point of action.
But I was even wondering, Javas, when you give amnesty on arms, what happens to the crude weapons? that are being used. You know,
illegal.
Inapiga watu ngeta hii mbao wanaweka hapa.
Pieces of timber.
Visu, panga.
Yes.
You know, metal rods and pipes. I mean,
mpaka kuna instrument ya ngeta.
Wanatengeneza na raba na mbao wanaweka hapa. Sasa kikushika, it presses on your whatever, on your veins, the ones that deliver blood to the brain, and that's why these people pass out so quickly, because of that wood pressing against the veins. So and it's being made inatengenezwa. I thought there was a TikTok going around showing how it's even being made. Inatengenezwa na rubber,
seconds.
And then it's you tie it around your arm. It's wood that is cut to your size, and then you use it to piga tungeta, and it's a very and if you hold on for too long, you will kill somebody.
Sikuwa najua mafanya technology.
Wanafanya mpaka na technology, lakini wacha niseme hivi kuhusu hii mambo ya watu kuexpect mtu akuwe ananguruma. In fact, the best way for a minister of interior to work is quietly. Is quietly. We don't need to hear either bass, soprano, alto, you know. Let them just work quietly.
Sasa mwenye anataka kitoka hivi akiambia Al-Shabaab can tremble.
But you see, you're not going to use your fists.
Yeah, your voice is not going to.
And we did not see Dr. Matiang'i walking around with a gun to scare off.
But he had the face for.
Na unajua hivyo ndo they said the same about Chebukati, at he's too soft spoken. I don't know.
Sasa alionyesha
maneno. He doesn't seem that vile alifanya mambo. Alifanya kazi yake vizuri na akamaliza, and it was backed by the Supreme Court that he did a good job.
Yeah.
So sauti.
In fact, for Matiang'i, I took issue with this approach to leadership. The issue of talking down on persons, and it's like you're lecturing everybody and
all the time.
I mean, really, that's not the kind of governance.
By the way, Kibicho was actually a very powerful figure in that ministry, perhaps as much as Matiang'i was. And Kibicho is fairly soft-spoken and fairly quiet. Yeah, he's fairly soft-spoken.
So let's give men with soprano a chance.
What? Ana soprano. Kiniki ana soprano.
Mimi nimesikia. Nimesema.
Unasikia kama kuna soprano.
Mimi nimesikia watu wakisema.
By the way, he doesn't have a soprano.
Okay. All right. Let's give everybody deserves it. Every voice deserves a chance.
Music, so
every voice matters.
Every voice deserves a chance.
My voice, my choice.
Treasury 6 KQ sell to foreign strategic investor. Kianane. Woi.
I'm telling you.
Mnataka kuuza.
That sounds like trouble, isn't it?
Kianane. Msiuze, please. Deloitte seems to, hata kama inatengeneza losses ni yetu, wacha tungangana nayo. Deloitte seems to have an approach different from its partners who usually elect a CEO every 4 years for a term of 4 years. Kuna story ya biashara hapo. SGR trains fully booked, airfares double ahead of Christmas. Yani kitu mnapitianga tu once in a year. Siku ya Christmas peke yake. Anyway, that's it on the newspaper headlines this morning. I'll see you again tomorrow on Siasa Wednesday. It's been a pleasure having you. Until then, take care. This is The Tackle, and it ends now. Bye-bye.